It is midnight in Washington, 9 in Sochi, and 2 on a Tuesday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. Let's get a check of the main stories we're following at this hour. Rescue workers in Korea are continuing their efforts to reach at least 10 people still trapped under the rubble of a building at a mountain resort that collapsed late Monday, killing 10 people, including 9 university students, and injuring dozens. With only 2 days to go until landmark set of reunions for families separated by the Korean War, President Park Geun-hye highlights the need to come up with fundamental measures that would allow for regular meetings of families living on either side of the inter-Korean border. And it is day 12 of the 2014 Winter Olympic Games. From the red-hot Olympic fever in Sochi to a schedule of events you can look forward to, we've got it all covered. But first, let us begin with the horrifying building collapse in Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju that has claimed so many young lives already. Now, 10 people have been confirmed dead and more than 100 were injured, 2 of them in serious condition. For more on the current situation, we're going to go live on the phone with our Shin Se-min from our news center. Se-min, what is the latest information that we're getting from that site?
Hi, Kang-young. The events of last night's tragic accidents are finally taking shape this Tuesday, and this is what we know now. More than 500 first-year students from Busan University of Foreign Studies were having their orientation in an auditorium at the Mauna Ocean Resort in Gyeongju when it collapsed at around 9 p.m. Monday night Korea time. And as of now, 10 people have been confirmed dead and over 100 have minor injuries, while 2 are in critical condition. Hundreds of fire and police officials remain at the scene, but fortunately, people who have been reported missing in the hours after the accident have since been accounted for. The resort's location, high up a mountain, made it much more difficult for emergency services to get to, and the recent heavy snow and ice made things even worse, with witnesses saying that it took nearly half an hour for emergency services to arrive. So far, several people are receiving medical treatment at hospitals in the nearby city of Ulsan.
Now, Se-min, those who managed to escape the site says they have said that there was an indication that the building was under strain in the moments before it collapsed. What's going on that front?
You're right. Of the some 500 students and organizers that were in and around the auditorium, scores managed to rush to the exits as the loud cracking sound was heard around 10 seconds before the roof caved in. And most of the injured and those killed were the ones unable to evacuate the building before everything came tumbling down. An eyewitness said the ceiling came down at the front, forcing students to rush towards the back exit.
The ceiling came down at the front near the stage, so I ran out. Within 10 seconds, the ceiling fell right on top of us, hitting me on the head.
Oh, it must have been absolutely terrifying, especially for such a young students. Now, I'm sure those that have really managed to get out still are in a state of shock. Now, Se-min, one of the most likely explanations for this collapse seemed to be the heavy snow that fell in that area over the last few days.
Yes, there is growing speculation that heavy snow on the roof could have caused a collapse following the recent massive snowfalls across that part of Korea, but officials say they're still trying to figure out what exactly caused the roof to suddenly fall in on itself. And also it has been said that the structure of the auditorium was frail as it was a temporary building. And local police say they'll launch a full investigation once rescue efforts have finished. And also, Prime Minister Chung Won has launched an official inquiry into the accident, while the Ministry of Security and Public Administration is due to submit a report to Parliament regarding the matter. And President Park Geun-hye also sent her condolences to the victims' families, ordering officials to thoroughly investigate the case. Kang-young?
All right, thank you, Se-min, and I'm sure you will keep us updated throughout the day on that case. That was our Shin Se-min with the latest on the building collapse in Gyeongju, where 10 people, mostly university students, were so tragically killed last night. Now, moving over to another tragic incident. Police in Egypt say they believe a suicide bomber carried out Sunday's bus bombing that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans. This comes as an al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist group in Egypt has claimed responsibility for the attack. Hwang Sung-hee has this report.
Egyptian security forces say a suicide bomber was probably behind Sunday's deadly bus bombing in Sinai that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans. After reviewing CCTV footage of the attack, police concluded a suicide bomber had boarded the tourist bus and detonated his explosives near the door. A spokesman from Egypt's Interior Ministry said Monday that the preliminary investigation shows some tourists disembarked to get their bags when a man walked onto the bus and an explosion followed when he reached the 3rd step. The bus, carrying mostly Korean tourists, was waiting to cross into Israel at the border when the blast took place. An al-Qaeda-linked Islamist group, Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis, has claimed responsibility for the bombing, saying it had previously warned it was planning an attack. In an online statement Monday, the group promised to continue to target the state's leaders and economy by hitting tourism and exploding the natural gas pipelines, threatening additional attacks in the next few days. Sunday's bombing was the first targeting tourists since the overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi last July, sparking fears Islamic militants are turning to attack Egypt's tourism industry, which is a pillar of the country's economy. Meanwhile, 15 survivors, who are expected to return to Korea on Tuesday, are still in Israel as they are struggling to find a flight home. An official at the Korean embassy said the group is planning to board a flight from Istanbul and added they will arrive in Korea on Wednesday afternoon at the earliest. 11 of the 13 injured Koreans have undergone surgery to remove fragments and debris from their bodies. 2 more will stay in Israel a little longer as they need to have further operations. The bodies of the 3 dead Koreans have also been transferred to Tel Aviv and are undergoing return procedures. 황성희, 아리랑 뉴스.
All of the day's important events. Events close to home, around the world.
Second half last, figure out what winners.
The arts and culture scene and the heart of global business.
Experts added that
ARIRANG News has your whole day covered.
the legislature will convene a plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government.
The sheer horror of life in North Korea has been laid out for all to see in a new UN human rights report in which the international body accuses the reclusive regime of crimes against humanity. Oh Jin-ju has the details.
After a year-long investigation, the United Nations has concluded that there have been systematic, widespread, and grave violations of human rights in North Korea. In a detailed report released Monday, the UN Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea defined the abuses as, quote, crimes against humanity, which means that most of them were based on policies and decisions made by the North Korean regime in an effort to maintain a grip on power. The report said the international community has the responsibility to protect North Koreans by applying the so-called responsibility to protect status to the communist state and urged the UN Security Council to refer the North Korean regime to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The crimes in the North are spread over 9 areas. Violations of freedom of expression, ideology, and religion, discrimination based on origin, violations of the right to movement, violations of the right to food, which then leads to issues regarding the right to life, arbitrary detention, torture, and violations associated to prison camps and abductions of foreigners. The chairman of the UN inquiry, Michael Kirby, in a personal letter written to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un last month, has warned that the Commission will recommend the UN to refer the situation in the North to the ICC to, quote, render accountable all those, including possibly Kim, who may be responsible for the crimes against humanity. The report also called for stronger and continued UN efforts to enhance the human rights situation in the North, such as setting up an organization that could be in charge of follow-up measures to the investigation. The UN Commission of Inquiry is expected to report its results at a general meeting of the UN Commission on Human Rights on March 17th and adopt a resolution on North Korean human rights later that month. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News.
Now, the UN report is being seen by many as a wake-up call to the world to take action against the human rights abuses being committed in North Korea. The North ally China, however, may put the brakes on international efforts to tackle the issue. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Although the atrocities laid out in the UN report on the human rights abuses in North Korea have been in the public domain for years, the report is being seen as a renewed call to action. The chairman of the UN inquiry, Michael Kirby, said the report calls for attention from the international community, highlighting the deep regret that was felt after the atrocities of the Second World War came to light.
If only we had known that. Well, now the international community does know. The international community will know. There will be no excusing a failure of action because we didn't know. We do know.
The inquiry conducted by the panel of experts of the UN's Human Rights Council is regarded as the highest profile attempt by the international community to investigate the abuses in the reclusive state, and the evidence gathered here could lay a foundation for future claims in the International Criminal Court. The UN Human Rights Council is expected to adopt a resolution on the issue when the panel formally presents its findings next month. Yet it remains unclear what actions will follow. China, North Korea's longtime ally, will likely block attempts to refer the North to the ICC, using its power as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. As expected, the report has raised questions about its possible impact on relations between North and South Korea. Seoul has welcomed the UN's findings and vowed to cooperate with the international community to improve the human rights situation in the North. North Korea, on the other hand, has flatly rejected the report, saying it will deal strongly with any outside attempts to topple the North Korean regime. The two Koreas made a breakthrough during high-level talks held last week to revive reunions for families separated by the Korean War. The first round of the reunions is scheduled to take place this week. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, President Park Geun-hye says the two Koreas need to find a way to hold more reunions for families separated since the Korean War. At a cabinet meeting on this Tuesday morning, President Park said only a fraction of the 3,800 South Koreans who applied to be reunited with families in the North will have the opportunity to do so at an upcoming round of reunions scheduled to start Thursday. Now, she said it is significant that the reunions are going to take place as planned despite the North's previous call to postpone the event because it overlaps with the start of a planned annual military drill between South Korea and the U.S. She also urged North Korea to keep its promises to the South and reiterated that her government will deal with humanitarian affairs such as the reunions separate from military or political issues. Meanwhile, the National Assembly here in Seoul has been holding a hearing on last month's massive data breach that affected millions of people here in Korea. Among government officials reporting to lawmakers on this Tuesday are Finance Minister Hyun Woo-seok, Financial Services Commission Chairman Shin Jae-yoon, and Financial Supervisory Service Governor Choi Soo-hyun. Now, all three said the nation's regulatory bodies have strengthened monitoring of staff at financial firms and established new regulations to better control sharing of customer information between affiliates. Firms will also be dealt much heftier punishment if they are subject to future data breaches. The personal data of up to 20 million Koreans were leaked last month from three leading credit card firms, KB Kookmin Card, Lotte Card, and NH Nonghyup Card. The 39-year-old mayor of Florence is on his way to becoming Italy's youngest ever prime minister or the youngest ever leader in the EU zone. Matteo Renzi received a mandate from Italian President Giorgio Napolitano on Monday to form a new government after Enrico Letta stepped down as prime minister on Friday. Now, Letta was ousted by his own Democratic Party, which called on Renzi to fill the post. Renzi, a highly popular figure within the party, has laid out an ambitious plan to revitalize the Italian economy. Renzi was never elected as a member of parliament and will now have to have his nomination confirmed by the president before he is sworn in as prime minister, which could happen as early as Thursday. Now, taking a brief look at how the local stock market is doing here in Seoul, Korean shares fell early on this Tuesday from a near 4-week high posted a day earlier as foreign investors booked profits, while construction to clothing conglomerate Korean group lost 3% after one of its buildings collapsed, killing 10 people. As of 1:30 p.m. Korea time, the benchmark Kospi was trading 0.3% lower at 1941, while the tech-heavy Kosdaq edged up 0.3%. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency was trading weaker against the greenback at 1,064 won flat. We're now well into the second week of the Sochi Winter Olympics, and you might think the Olympic fever is only being felt inside the arenas, but you'd be wrong. Well, the party spirit is in full swing pretty much all over the stunning resort city of Sochi. So why don't we now go live or connect with our sports correspondent, Song Ji-sun, who is currently in Sochi. Hello there, Ji-sun.
Hello guys, I'm reporting Sochi Media Center at downtown Sochi, where you can also watch ongoing games, as you can see behind me on the screen. And the fans can also enjoy the games, as they can watch ongoing games anywhere across the city in Sochi and Adler. Take a look at how the fans can enjoy the games even after leaving the Olympic Park. Practically everyone walking around Sochi is decked out in Olympics merchandise or their team uniform, and those who aren't are lined up at shops.
I waited to buy some clothes during 15 minutes. It's cool, I think.
And even if you weren't lucky enough to get a ticket to the games, you can still be part of the Olympic excitement. Here at downtown Sochi, the Olympic vibe is alive, both among domestic and foreign fans who have gathered here for the Olympics. You can buy souvenirs, watch ongoing games, and cheer for your favorite athletes here at one of the live sites across the city. With tickets harder to get each day, the sites have become a place for all to join. Despite early reports that Sochi wasn't fully prepared for the games, fans are enjoying every moment, and avid Olympic fans who have been following the Winter Olympics even before the Sochi Games are already looking ahead to 2018, when the global event will be held in Pyeongchang.
So far everything has been fantastic. The volunteers have been really helpful whenever we're getting lost, and yeah, everything's been really well organized. And
so we went to Vancouver in 2010, we've been here, and now 2018 we're planning to go to see the next set of games.
To these fans, the only pity is that the Olympics last for just a little over 2 weeks, and another wait of 4 years is right around the corner, just as it is for the athletes. Well, that's all for me from now, and I'll be back with another story within the Olympic Park tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoy Olympics wherever you are. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Ji-sun. That was our Olympics correspondent, Song Ji-sun, reporting from Sochi, the bustling host city of the 2014 Winter Olympics. Now, let's get our daily coverage of the Olympics for our special session with our Lee Tae-hyo for all the latest news and results from Sochi. Good afternoon to you, Tae-hyo.
Good afternoon.
So it was day 10 of the medal events yesterday at the Sochi Games, and they are waking up to day 11 of medal events. What were the results yesterday?
Well, I think the big news that came to a conclusion yesterday was the women's national curling team. They went up against the number 2 ranked team in the world, the ladies of Team Canada, which resulted in a loss, unfortunately, but this being their first berth at the Olympics, I think they did a wonderful job winning over the host country, Russia, Japan, the United States, and they placed 8th out of the 10 teams that competed in the event.
Right. I mean, these 5 female athletes, they put Korea on the curling map in the Olympics. This was their first Olympics ever, and which is much more meaningful than the actual results.
That's right, because what it did for the sport here in Korea, it put a spotlight on the sport and the ladies, of course. It was making headlines and news all throughout the whole Sochi Olympics, and it kind of raises awareness for the sport. And before the idols on ice really performed at the Olympics, this was a relatively unknown sport. Curling, what is it? You use a broom and a stone on the ice. So it's raised a lot of awareness, and claimed a lot more interest in Korea for this sport.
Right, and hopefully we'll be able to see this sport take a giant leap forward in 4 years when we here in Korea, Pyeongchang, host the Winter Games in 2018. Now moving on to a two-person bobsled event. That's another event that Koreans weren't fully aware of until the Olympic Games this time.
That's right. This is the first time that the Korean team participated in the two-person bobsleigh event. Korea had 2 teams participating in the competition, with the first team, Team Korea #1 of Won Yoon-jung and Seo Young-woo, placing 18th overall. This is the best that Team Korea has placed in any of the bobsledding events, and that's including the 4-person event as well.
Right. I mean, congratulations, a job well done to the athletes, Korean athletes in that sled. I'm still not very familiar with that event, and to me it looks like an amusement park, but I'm sure it's much more than that. Now we creep ever closer to the start of the women's figure skating event. Of course, that is one of the highlights of the Winter Olympics, and I mean, you have a breakdown of the 2 biggest stories of the competition, right?
That's right. Now, one of the focal points of the Winter Olympics is always the women's figure skating competition, and of course, we have our figure skating queen Kim Yeon-ah performing, and the heavy favorite to repeat her gold performance once again here at the Sochi Winter Olympics. Now, coming into these Olympics, her longtime rival of Mao Asada was the second favorite, I guess, for the silver and even the gold. But with the emergence of 15-year-old Yulia Lipnitskaya of Russia, she's having a sensational Olympics, and she's being called the Russian sweetheart. There's a lot of, I guess, stories being told about the strengths of the 2, Kim and, of course, Lipnitskaya. I
mean, I would have to say that it would be a little bit hard to call them rivals or make comparisons between the 2, as, for Kim Yeon-ah, this is her last and final Olympics as she ends her career as an athlete, figure skater. For Lipnitskaya, this is her first ever Olympics. She's just starting with her career, so I think there's more of a contrast between the 2 than comparisons, but the media have been putting a lot of focus on in comparing the 2.
That's right. Now, there's been stories being set up about the skill of the 2, Lipnitskaya and Kim, but I think what a lot of media outlets have failed to kind of point out is the vast difference in experience between the 2, because 2 Olympics compared to 1, being in the competitions for X amount of years that Kim has been, and dominating really for all those years, and the relatively new, I guess, budding star that Lipnitskaya currently is. But taking a look at Kim's strongest skill, her jumps, I mean, these are what experts call a textbook jump. There are 4 things that really pop out, and the first thing is the speed going into jumps. Now, most skaters tend to slow down as they go into their jumps just for safety and security and to make sure that they maintain form, but Kim Yeon-ah tends to maintain her speed throughout her jump, which is amazing. Now, that is something that Lipnitskaya also does. She slows down, she twists her skates going into the jump, which is kind of dangerous on her ankles as well. And I guess that also leads to the second point, which is the height of her jumps. Now, because she's going so fast into her jumps, she gets more height into her jumps. Now, with Lipnitskaya, she tends to get a little bit lower in the air compared to Kim Yeon-ah, of course, and a lot of times she seems to just be hovering above the ice, whereas Kim Yeon-ah seems to just be up in the air, grabbing the air and just sailing through the air itself. Yes.
Yeah, and a lot of the experts have in previous years compared Kim Yeon-ah's jumps to the male athletes' jumps. I mean, the power going into the speed, the height, the distance which she travels in air, that's just remarkable. However, Lipnitskaya's jumps seem executed in tight as well.
That's right. Now, that's because of the rotation of her spin while she's in the air. Although she doesn't go into the jumps with the same speed or get the same height, she does maintain really good form, just like Kim Yeon-ah does, which forms a tighter, quicker spin during the rotation of the jump.
Right. Another thing about, I think, Lipnitskaya is that her spins are very well executed, and she used to be a gymnast, so I think that that makes her flexibility more, I suppose, smooth than Kim Yeon-ah.
Well, that's one of the big things. Now, the strength of Kim Yeon-ah being her jumps, the strength of Lipnitskaya is really her spins and her flexibility. And when you look at Lipnitskaya's spins, she spins very quickly. She has a very good center of gravity, and her flexibility definitely helps as compared to Kim Yeon-ah, who had a back injury a couple of years ago. So she really tends to stay away from the complex spins.
Well, we'll have to wait and see how the two perform. And it's, I'm sure they have practiced a lot, tried their physical limits and whatnot. But I think on the day of the competition, it's more of, how mentally strong you are. And we'll have to wait and see how that plays out, which will be the midnight on the 20th here in Korea.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Taeho, for that. And we'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
Well, that's all from me at this hour. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with more of the day's latest at 4 p.m. Korea time.